Hello, everyone. Welcome to Knit with Laura and Lola. I'm Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I am joined by my alter ego, Lola. For those of you who have watched a few of my lives, you know that I can be pretty sophisticated-ish, and my alter ego Lola's a little bit spicy and naughty. She and I will both be showing up tonight. For those of you that are watching this later, and for those of you that are watching this now, there is chat happening, like a live chat happening for those of you watching as I am spilling the tea tonight. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. I can see you say where you're coming in from. It's really fun for people who are watching later to see who is watching from all over the world. It's really fun for me. I actually go back and look at the live chat afterwards, and I love seeing where you're all from and how many of you are watching and hanging out with me. You will notice as I do this live that I'm try to be careful not to look at the chat too much, because I know some of you are watching later and that can get a little bit obnoxious. So everything that I talk about in this live, when it is over, I will give you all the links below in the show notes. So maybe like 20 minutes after this is done, you'll be able to find the links to everything I talk about. I will give a moment at the end of the live to see if any of you have any questions in the chat, and then I will look over to the chat, but I really try not to look at it too much because I think it's a little annoying to watch somebody who's like, I don't know, just interacting with the chat the whole time instead of talking to the camera. So I get distracted. I will say that I have not done a live since February. So we did a live in February, and then in March was Knit for Food, and there was just too much going on to do a live. So I kind of have 2 months worth of stuff to share. I'm convinced I forgot a few things. I know I did. And that's going to be okay because I really try to keep these into that hour-ish range, not too much more than that. So if I have too much, I'll start to cut things out and save them for another live. I do have the winner of February's live to announce at the end of this live, and then I will figure out some kind of giveaway for the next live. I don't have a plan for that. That might be the thing I forgot that I'm remembering already, but I always kind of come up with something. I'm a creative, right? So the first thing that I like to do is tell you what Goldie's wearing and what I'm wearing, and because somebody's going to be wondering about that. Goldie is wearing Love Language, which was the first kit of 2024's N Club. That club is sold out for 2024. It was open for months and months. I tried to be loud about it, but I end up having to order based on the numbers, so that club is sold out. And if it happens again in 2025, if you're on my mailing list, you'll hear. Love Language is knit with 100% mulberry silk. It is a scrumptious, gorgeous yarn that was dyed for me by my friend Susie at Fiber MacGyver. I don't know if you can hear the beads on there hitting Goldie, but it's got beads on the beaded bind off and then throughout the wings of the shawl. And she is a beauty, and she has got us all talking about our love languages. I am wearing one thing that's kind of an interesting thing to talk about. You can hardly see it. I'm wearing Novus jacket. I'm going to stand up as I do sometimes so that you can see Novus jacket. It's got a jewel closure on there to keep it closed. It is done in my Novus side-to-side sweater construction. It is done in DK weight, so it's actually the DK weight version of my bulky weight Novus jacket. And then around my neck, I am wearing Sprang scarf. So the reason I say I want to talk about Novus jacket for a second is I believe it will be releasing next week if everything goes according to plan. And I broke my rule and I knit myself a sweater in a color that I really wanted for my wardrobe, but you can tell from the light, it just soaks up light. So it's hard to see the details on video. You can't really see the details on video. The photos, we had to use a lot of light so that you could see the details. I'm going to wear the crap out of this. This is knit in Kelborn Woolen's Scout, which is just a great basic DK weight yarn. And that pattern, there's a short version and a long version. I've got testers testing it right now. And if you're on my newsletter, you will definitely hear when it is live. Sprang scarf. I feel like a little I don't know, advertisement for all my designs here. Max just was like, yeah, you do. I'm wearing Sprang Scarf, which was the N Club 2023's design, and that design just actually released to everybody. So if you want to knit a lovely, fun spring scarf, it is knit in 2 different yarns. These are dyed by Essence of Autumn, but you could just go stash diving for 2 different lace yarns. You could use the same yarn if you want to. This is a silk cashmere at the edge and then a silk linen in the garter stitch body of Sprang Scarf. It's designed with 3 different sizes, and it is 50% off through this Friday. So you don't need to use a coupon code. If you just go to Ravelry and type in Sprang, this will come right up. It is fun to knit. You will see lots that were knit by last year's N Club members. The last thing I'm wearing are 3 of my Sprang cuffs, which was the goodie that came with Sprang last spring for club members. And I have kits in 8 colors releasing on Friday. And I kind of on purpose, kind of by accident, forgot to have a photo of that for the live. So you will get to see all of those colors on Friday. I'm being a little tease right there. It is beaded crochet, so you are crocheting with beads that are pre-strung on your yarn and slipped up. There's a video tutorial that will teach you how to do the cuff. I give you lots of other assets, like a few different instructors who also teach beaded crochet really well. Beaded crochet, once you understand exactly what is happening with your hook and your yarn or your beading thread and your beads, it is the same move continuously all the way around. My favorite instructor has a thing where she was like, beaded crochet, you must obey. Like there's just one way to do it and you do it that way. She's so funny. So I link to all of that in my tutorial and again, newsletter you'll hear, or in the Ravelry group. I will make sure to post there as well as like, Instagram and Facebook. All right. Enough of that. I love the Sprang cuff. I'm actually wearing all 3 versions in the same color because I give you different versions to work. It's fun to do something that's like knitting adjacent sometimes. I don't knit all the time, almost all the time. Speaking of people who knit, who didn't knit before and now they do knit, did you all hear that Conan O'Brien learned how to knit on Conan O'Brien Must Go, which is a new show on, I believe it's on HBO Max, and it is a travel show. And the first episode of Conan's new show, he went to Bergen, Norway, where I was with my cruise last year, and he met with a knitting circle there, and he was like amazed that they were all drinking and knitting and hanging out. It's really funny to like watch a knitting circle kind of making fun of Conan and him making fun of them. And they taught him how to knit, and the first thing he knit is a thong, which my alter ego Lola is like kind of wants to sue him. She feels like he stole her shtick because that's Lola's shtick, the thong shtick. That's bad. We are not going to sue Conan. Don't worry about Conan. You're safe. You don't have to lawyer up quite yet. But what I do want to say is that clearly Lola and Conan are both 12-year-old boys together, and they should hang out and play. And I would have an awesome awesome time teaching Conan maybe his like second knitting class someday. But I thought that was really funny. Lori shared that with me in my Facebook group, and I love when you all find little things that you think I'll find amusing and share them with me, because I am definitely not out there like absorbing everything. Oftentimes I'm not on social media, or I'm not watching something. I'm like listening to a book and out in my garden. So please continue to share either on Facebook group or Ravelry or wherever you love to be. I love to hear. I don't know who gave him the idea to knit a thong, and I kind of wonder if he knows about Lola. Is that possible? Maybe. So in my lives, I talk about a lot. I talk about Conan O'Brien. I talk about my knitting. I talk about what I'm sewing. I talk about what I'm reading and watching and listening to. Sometimes I talk about what I'm eating. And I love to start with what I am knitting. And I typically start with what is off my needles. And I have some things I do get to show you and some things I don't get to show you. The first thing I am not going to show you is May Lola's Choice designs, which there are 2 of them, and that kit is being packed up as I hang out with you. Well, not right at this moment, but this weekend it is starting to be packed up. There are beads in 3 different colors, so that has taken some time. I don't want to give too much away. I will say one thing about it is a design that you can work. If one version can be worked with an I-cord tool. So you could use, this is a 4-stitch I-cord tool. We're going to talk about that later. You could use a 3-stitch I-cord tool, or you can do a knit version of that. And then there's a separate design that has nothing to do with an I-cord tool. So if you are somebody who made an I-cord tool or purchased an I-cord tool, because I couldn't stop talking about them this winter, you are going to have something to do with that tool. Those patterns will be available separately. And if you are in the club, then you will get the kit and all the supplies that you need to make it. We are doing 3 videos. So I was like, Max, when we're getting ready to shoot the Lola's Choice videos, instead of doing one chunky video, we're going to do one video where we kind of show everybody the kit. And then we're going to do one video for one of the patterns and one video for the other one of the patterns, because it would just be like too big to do that all at once. And he was like, oh, awesome, like a 3-way. I'm totally into that. But pretty funny, right? Okay, am I the only one laughing over here? So we're getting ready to shoot those videos on Monday, and I just keep being like, Monday's 3-way night at Lola's studio or something like that. Thanks. Aaron laughed. So I got Aaron. That's all I needed. Okay, I got a few of you. I looked over at the chat. I'm so bad. Okay, so that's all I can tell you about Lola's Choice. It is a summer knit. It is a summer yarn. You'll be learning something new. It is both things are very wearable, and I already have plans to do kits in multiple colors down the line, because it is one that wants to be kitted up, and I spent a little too much money putting it all together. So that's my way of kind of making up for when I do that. So the next thing that is off my needles are, first I'll show you March's Lola's Choice design, which was the Larch Peds. And the Larch Peds is pretty much one of my best-selling patterns ever, which just kind of surprised me. And I think it's because they pack so much into this little package. So they teach a few new techniques that some sock knitters maybe haven't tackled before. And it's been really fun to watch them fly off of all of your needles. And I've been kind of as people post them on Ravelry, I've been adding those photos to the pattern page so you can see the different color combos or yarns that people are using to make their Larch Peds. And I've been wearing my Larch Peds nonstop. And in fact, my original Larch Peds are downstairs by the bathroom sink to get a good washing, because I've been wearing them so much and they just really need to get washed and then maybe thrown in the dryer to like suck back up a little bit. But someone's working on their 4th pair. I love that. Thank you. But what I decided is, when I was wearing the Larch Peds and they weren't like freshly cleaned, but I'd worn them 2 or 3 times, which I totally do with wool socks, because wool has those like antimicrobial, because I'm disgusting and I wear my socks more than once. How's that? I noticed that if I was wearing them with my sneakers, I could lace up my sneakers and the stocks stayed perfectly great. That padded heel is so freaking awesome for hiking in the spring. But if I wore them in my like rain boots or my slip-on boots, I found that as I was pulling my foot out of my muck boot, which, muck boots are pretty serious, my sock was sometimes coming off and staying in the boot. And I realized that I really needed some kind of grip over the top or bottom of my foot. And I decided with this first pair, and I'm going to put them underneath the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. I decided with this first pair to put in a shaped gusset at the top of the foot, because I sometimes even do a princess sole where I have my purl stitches out and my knit stitches in on the bottom of my foot. And I was worried if I did ribbing on the bottom of my foot that I would feel that. So I posted this on Instagram that I was working on this, and a few people said that they do something similar to this on the bottom of their foot or sometimes all the way around. And one person was saying, and I thought this was brilliant, like maybe 5 or 6 rows in, on the bottom of her sock, every other round, she does a knit one, slip one, just for like 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, like a slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, just on the bottom stitches. And then the next round is a knit. And then the next round is a slip one, knit one. And what that does is kind of like truncate or contract the row gauge on the bottom of the foot, which would also help it stay on. And I think that would be right at your arch, so you wouldn't feel it as you're walking, unless I guess you're a little bit flat-footed and you would feel that. I went for the ribbing at the top of my foot. I'm interested to see if I'm like do a big hike, if I feel any irritation with my sneakers, but I know with my slip-on boots that these are going to work perfectly. So there is a plan to release a addendum, or like an addition to Larch Peds, that gives you the option of putting in arch shaping at the top of your foot, and that's written into the pattern, so you can like skip ahead a page, or you can just like keep working through as it's written now. I'm pretty excited about it. It makes them even a little bit more like an athletic sock. And I just sent some yarn to Lois. I know she's watching tonight, because I didn't have time to knit another pair, and I asked her if she had time to knit like her 12th pair, because I think she has knit a lot of them. But I asked her if she would make a pair for me in gauge dye work self-striping yarn, because I think that this will look very different when it's not done in a completely different color. But I think you could see it really well in this. So it was a really good proof of concept to try a pair. I did knit 2 of them, because I knit them 2 at the time after I did the cuff and the heel gusset. And I will be wearing these. I technically should keep them nice for our photo shoot that I have the second week of May before I really get into wearing them, but very excited about those Larch Peds. And as I like sneak a look over at the chat, I can see that some of you are pretty excited too. The next thing I'm going to quickly talk about, without not going too into depth of it, is last live I asked you to help me name that green sweater on the left. And one of you had an awesome idea of Ola Lola. Ola means waves, and then Lola is me, right? So the pattern is ready to go. It is actually with testers now. I did a test call for that in the Ravelry group. I've got someone doing almost every size. There is a long sleeve version, a cap sleeve version, and a short sleeve version. That orange one that I'm wearing on the right is the cap sleeve version. It is not blocked yet, which is why it looks all wrinkled. It is all ready for the photo shoot, and I'm really excited to do a photo shoot for those outside, because we had bad weather both times we had a photo shoot scheduled, and I really want to get some, like, in the industry we call them lifestyle shots. But yeah, I just want to be outside with my sweater on, so you get an idea. It's just so stark against the white, and I love photos with the white background, because you as a knitter can really see the detail and you know what you're knitting. And I think that photos that are like too romantic and too lifestyle-y don't let you know what you're knitting, and it's nice to be able to look at a photo and see what your knitting is supposed to look like. But on the other hand, I think they're a little stark, and we need a little bit of like outside, because you know I love to be outside. The 2 yarns that I showed you, that green one is Wool Dreamers Cautiva, which is a sport weight yarn. It is 100% Spanish wool. I will be wearing that sweater when I go to Spain next November. And then the peachy orangey one, the clay one, because this color is called clay, is from Queen City Yarn. And I'll just show this to you underneath. I freaking love this yarn for a summer sweater. So this yarn is called Coleman. It's 65 silk and 35 linen. This is technically a DK weight yarn, but it really knits up as sport weight. It's a pretty light DK, and it made an absolutely stunning fabric for a summer sweater, and I am thrilled with that one. I might wear it next week to TNNA, which is next week. Oh no, not TNNA anymore. It's called H&H. We'll talk about that when we get to like the travel section, which is big and chonky, and we'll see how much of that we can talk about. But yes, new sweaters to wear. So that's also off my needles. And then what is on my needles is the second End Club. The yarn was supposed to get here today and didn't show up, so hopefully it will be here tomorrow. I have a concept. I need to start swatching that to see if my concept's actually going to work. Another thing that is on my needles is more of the Lola's Choice May designs, because they're so fun. And one, I'm not going to show it to you, it's right next to me, but I'm knitting one version of it in this gorgeous hand spun yarn that I got at a fiber festival this winter. Let's just zoom in there. I ripped my tag. Stitched by Melody made it, spun it. And I think I talked about this last time, that I love to buy hand spun yarn. And to me, although that looks like, pretty expensive for 250 yards, I didn't have to buy a spinning wheel, and I didn't have to buy fleece and then learn how to make it to end up with this yarn. I could just support somebody who has a spinning habit. And this yarn is 70% merino wool, 15 yak, 15 silk. Look how pretty it is. It is so pretty. And the fabric, I'm not showing you, I know you want me to. The fabric that it's knitting up is so pretty, and I'm totally excited about it. This pattern is going to be one of those ones that you could knit over and over in kind of like any special yarn that you have lying around, and I'm pretty psyched about that. So that is on my needles. Another thing that is on my needles that I am going to show you quickly, and then we're going to talk about it in more depth, is when I was at New York State Sheep and Wool, I bought some gorgeous yarn from Junction Fiber Mill. And then I decided I wanted to make a Lolette shrug with it. So using the center from Lolette, which was a blanket that I designed for last year's countdown calendar. And you can see on the right, I had it with me when I was in March helping out my daddy. You can see my daddy kind of through right there, recuperating from surgery. And it was great to be working on those wedges and joining them together while I was hanging out with him and just kind of being present, but not too annoying. And then on the left, you can see it blocking. And then at my last photo shoot, I asked my photographer, we could just lay it out on the ground and get a photo of it flat before I started joining it up into the shrug shape, because I think it's really helpful to see like that. And then I can show you, is this interesting? I hope this is interesting. I don't normally tease this much because this might not be out till like August at this rate, because I keep getting distracted by other stuff. But here is the shrug, and you can see why it was cool to see it flat. I am right now working on the collar. So if I turn it around, I don't have any of my ends woven in right now. I'm basically working on the collar, and I'm just working around. And at this point right now, I feel like knitting while I'm talking to you. At this point right now, I'm working on the short rows. So I'm working back and forth with some of the Junction Fiber Mill, doing a short row section, and then I will do some ribbing and bind it off. For those of you who know my patterns, I have a shrug called Hug You Me that is one of my, for me in the winter, one of my most worn designs. And when I saw Lolette and I started thinking about what else I wanted to do with it besides a blanket, I knew that I wanted it to be the back of a shrug. And I'm really, really glad I'm doing it. So that will be out at some point. Lolette also could totally be the yoke of a sweater one day. Like sometimes I come up with a concept and it is worth diving a little deeper into, like exploring a little further. And I really feel that with Lolette. And with that, what is that called? Dyed in the Wool yarn from Junction Fiber Mill. All of those wedges were one skein, and I was just working up different sections of the skein, and they were all kind of ending up being a different color instead of working from like a set of mini skeins or something and choosing 8 different mini skein colors. So that's kind of how it got that. But you're going to hear more about it because the math is going to take a while on this. Like Ola Lola was done being knit in January, but it's just to testing. These things take time, which I love. I love having you see how much time some designs take, that it's not just like I had an idea and it's out to you. There's a lot of processing and a lot of math. But I love math, so yay. Okay, I was going to get distracted if I kept knitting, so I have to stop. The other thing that I'm working on the July Lola's Choice kit. I have the idea that I've been auditioning yarns, and Lola's Choice is always interesting because I'll have an idea for a yarn and it'll be like way too much money for that club, because that club's like smaller knitted kits that are kind of accessible and easier. So it took me some time to find the yarn that fit the budget and also fit the design really well. And I finally found one in Germany, and I think I had actually originally seen it last March when I went to H&H in Germany. So that trip was excellent. I really did find some good stuff there. And that yarn is on its way to me right now. So it could be here tomorrow, actually. I think I asked for expedited shipping so that I could be working on it next week while I'm traveling. And that idea is fun. And one I've had up here for going on a year, but it's like really a summertime knit. Done teasing. Moving on. Finally, my husband would like a pair of large peds in men's size, which means we will be sizing up that pattern because I forget what size foot it stops at, but it stops kind of before the men's sizes. So we'll be sizing up large peds at some point, and he wants like a dark gray pair with dark green heel. Woot. Pretty fun. Okay, I want to show you something else. So I am going to show you an I-cord tool that I believe it was Sherry. So last winter I was obsessed with I-cord tools, and I kept showing you different things an I-cord tool would do. The original I-cord tool that I saw had 3 hooks, and it was a video that I found that maybe was a Chilean artist who had made this video that had 3 hooks, and it kind of like went viral all over Instagram. And I posted it one day to be like, does anybody know what this is? And then some people started making one, and I started playing around with them. And then one day Sherry asked me if it could be done with 4 hooks instead of 3 hooks. And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. And then once I started making my own, this one is made with like Sculpey or Fimo. The last live I showed you, I taught you how to make one. I decided to make one with 4 hooks because they're so easy to make. And I just made sure they were evenly spaced apart. And yes, a 4-hook I-cord tool totally works. What's the difference between a 3-stitch I-cord tool? Well, the biggest difference is that there's 4 stitches instead of 3. The next difference is that it is a little harder to do because things get a little bit tighter. But what you can see for the cord is that the cord is a little bit fatter than when you make a cord with 3 hooks. So if you're in a situation where you need a bulkier cord, you could certainly use a 4-hook tool. If I wanted this to be done with 3 hooks, like if I wanted to make 1 hook that was a 4-hook tool or a 3-hook tool, I could just work around the first 3, like 1, 2, 3 latch hooks right there and ignore the 4th. I could also do that like on these 3 and ignore that one. So you could make a 4-hook tool and only use 3 of the hooks. It's kind of obvious, right? That's not really like rocket science. Someone just asked if they could do make it smaller and do 2. Sure. Make it bigger and do 5, possibly, but I would test that and see, because remember how I said it's like a little harder to use because the yarn has to go over more hooks. With 5, that might even be a tiny bit more difficult. One thing that's kind of interesting, I think I saw Olga do this over the winter. So I typically wrap my yarn when I do an I-cord tool underneath just like that. So it's coming from the last stitch that it made and I'm going under. And so this is the first stitch being made. But what you can do if you want to make I-cord that is not round, but you want to make like a flat strap, is I can wrap one way like that. And then I can wrap one way like that. And if I do this a few times, you're going to see the difference here. It's just being a little tight. I don't want to lose anything because I don't have a DPN up here to save myself. I will be teaching you in that next design how to fix mistakes on the I-cord tool because I've really figured out how to do that smoothly. This is being tight. Okay, let's see if I can get that. There we go. So sometimes if it's being tight, if you kind of like loosen up and get it a little looser, I'm not sure this is going as slickly as I want it to show you how to do it. Might be easier with the 3-stitch than the 4-stitch. I'm not giving up. Okay, we got a problem there. So anyway, that didn't go great. But what I want to do is show you the difference right here. You can see that what I just made was flat, and then what I made here was round. So if you wrap one way and the other way, you can make kind of a flat strap. It does roll in on itself, so it's still going to be somewhat rounded, which is just something to keep in mind there. This also works with the 3-stitch tool. If you look up Olga's Instagram, I can give you a link to that below. She shows it like potentially a little bit more slickly than I just did, but the concept of what I wanted to explain was there. You can also do one with 2 hooks if you want. Sherry said that that's easier for her to operate than her lucet. Oh, I looked at the comments again. I'm so bad. In terms of something I bought myself in March, I had my birthday and I like to get myself a little treat. And this book had just come out. It is written by Christiansen, who is the textile curator at the museum in Shetland in Lerwick. And it is all about Shetland fine lace knitting. And when I was in Shetland years ago, we got to go to the collection and Carol pulled things out for us to look at. And there were a few stitches that I was obsessed with. And I think 1 or 2 of them are in here. And I don't want to show you too much under the camera just for like copyright, and because if you are at all interested in, I'm just trying to find the one that is just absolutely stunning, at all interested in Shetland lace, I highly suggest checking out this book. It's really, I'm just looking at it now while you watch me talk, seeing if I can find the one page of the one that was like, really took my breath away. I think it's in the waves section. So she has them separated into sections, and oh, that one's really pretty. We'll show you that one. So you can see that she'll have a photo of it. There is also a chart, and then she also gives you the directions written out so you can follow along however you like. She does have a few projects in here that are written from start to finish. So if you're somebody who likes to have a pattern, this book is absolutely gorgeous. I bought it from the Shetland Wool Week shop so I could get a signed copy. It is also available through your local bookstores. I think it's also on Amazon, but whenever I know that I can like get a book signed and get it from the place that helped make the book happen, I always am willing to spend the extra money to do that. So I will have the link for you below to the Shetland Wool Week shop. I think it's really important to help support Shetland and Shetland knitters however we can. I mean, I know that I use a lot of Shetland lace stitches in my designs, and I really respect the years and years and years of work that have gone into developing those stitches and keeping them alive and on people's needles. So absolutely stunning book. There's my little book review. A lot of that is done with cobweb yarn. You don't need to. You could go up to lace weight yarn if you wanted to. Next up, I want to talk about travel a little bit. I typically have a travel section. I am going to tell you that it's been 2 months since we last chatted. I went to Mexico after Knit for Food, and I did take some photos. I posted just very few of them. And honestly, I didn't take a ton of photos. I got some incredible sleep when I was there. I got a lot of knitting done. I got some really excellent time with my dear, dear friend who lives in Mexico City. And so I don't really have like a travel log for you. That trip was really about like getting a little restoration, getting off the computer a bit, and getting to chat, which we did a whole heck of a lot of, me and Sherry. Sorry, not me and Sherry, me and Sarah. I'm not allowed to read the chat. I like see a name and I say that instead. So my Mexico trip was great. It was just a long weekend. The weekend after that, I taught in State College, Pennsylvania for a guild in State College. And again, don't have tons of pictures. I do have a few pictures from that, but I was so busy teaching that I didn't really like share as I was there. I'm not doing a lot of live teaching anymore. Just because there is enough to keep me very, very busy, and it can be a bit distracting. But that gig, I've always wanted to go to State College. And it was actually really funny because when I've driven past State College a lot on, I guess it's like 99 that goes past there to Pittsburgh, or when we go camping at Raystown. And all you can see from the highway are like the stadiums. So my family and I have always called State College Sports Ball Landia, because we just we're like, we're going through Sports Ball Landia, and then like maybe we'll get a snack at the next, gas station we see after Sports Ball Landia. And so everybody in the guild thought that was like hysterical that my family had a little name for State College. And it turns out to be incredibly like Ithaca. It's a big college town. It is really progressive. There was beautiful old homes, lots going on in the college town area. The space I taught in was amazing. It had the best tech I've ever used to teach with. I had like 2 screens for people to watch my hands on, and I had my document camera and my laptop. So where I was sitting, I was never in front of a screen, or where I was standing and talking, there was like a screen on each side of me so everybody could see. Like sometimes when that screen is in the center, then wherever I am, I'm going to be in the way of somebody being able to see it well. It was very well designed, and I really appreciated the space, and it made me love State College even more. They definitely understood that, like, using tech for teaching, which I do a lot when I teach knitting live. It was super fun. I get to tease you about something now that I got permission to tease you about. I just signed a contract to do a cruise in 2026. And this is a different cruise in that I am not organizing the cruise. I am hired to teach on the cruise, which is different because not that I won't be responsible and there and present, but I'm not responsible for like how people's bookings are going or travel is going. I'm there as a traveler, and then I am teaching every day for 3 hours. And this cruise is going down the Douro River in Portugal. It's going to be in March 2026. I will give you more details when it launches in June. I just wanted to like plant that seed in there for those of you who've been wanting to travel with me. It's a 7-day cruise, so it's going to be like really accessible time point. The last 2 cruises I've done are 14-day cruises, which I know not everybody can do, but 7 days in Portugal with Laura. It's a small river. It's a small boat. I think there's 100 cabins on that boat. I'm very excited for it, can you tell? And it would be very fun if any of you want to join me on that one. So if you're on my newsletter, again, you'll hear about it. I'm allowed. You'll hear about it, I promise. You'll know when it's happening. Almost done finally with travel. Max and I decided to go to Faroe at the end of May. I have been wanting to go to the Faroe Islands ever since I went to the Shetland Islands, like in 2018 or 17. And I had kind of structured this year to have a break in May and June. I do that every year. And we bought tickets to Iceland so we can see some exploding volcanoes. And then we're going to take a small plane over to Faroe. And I have, been looking for Airbnbs and looking for things to do. I'm pretty sure it's going to be like wool hiking, wool puffins, wool hiking, driving, wool knitting, wool hiking, a bunch of rain, and fish. We might even go on a helicopter. I heard there's cool like helicopters to get to sea cliffs to see puffins and wool and sheep. So I will definitely share that trip with you. I'm going to be good about taking pictures, and then I'll do a live afterwards to kind of share that adventure. We haven't had a family adventure like that in a bit, and I'm pretty excited about it. Finally, this weekend, I will be driving 2 hours west and going to the Fiber Flurry in Perry, New York. I taught there a fair number of years ago, but my friend Julie Beth is going to come up from Rhinebeck and we are going to drive to Fiber Flurry, check out some yarn, do some knitting. Our friend Tammy from Wing and a Prayer Farm is speaking there, so we're going to go to her keynote speak, and then we're going to go hike Letchworth State Park, which is the Grand Canyon of the East. It is pretty spectacular. I've been there a few times, but Julie Beth has never been there, so we're going to go take a nice big hike. It might be raining, but we're not going to melt, so we'll do it either way on Letchworth, and then we will make our way back to my house to hang out and knit some more. Should be a very fun local travel weekend. This weekend, if you're in the Finger Lakes region, it is also local yarn store day on Saturday, and there is the Southern Tier yarn crawl happening on Saturday. So that is, if you're in the area, that's another thing you can do. You can hit up 4 shops and do that. I did that last year and one other year, and this year I'm just trying something else out because you gotta mix it up sometimes. Next up, speaking of retreats and fun things to do, in March, I went to my favorite local retreat called Flare. And at Flare, I taught a group in the evening, just kind of like a, hey, who wants to make an I-cord tool? I taught them how to make I-cord tools and then taught them how to use them. And here's some happy campers making their I-cord tools. It was so fun. It was totally like being at camp, playing with Fimo together. And then on the right, those are a few pieces that I made with alcohol ink. So there's this really cool technique where you can take alcohol ink and spread it out on this like plasticky paper, and it makes all of these like psychedelic creations, and then you can cut them out into different shapes and put them into jewelry pieces. And it was really fun to do a craft that like I had no idea what it was going to be, and just like hung out and chatted with people and made stuff. We had a really good time. And then the other thing that I did was make a Haralson bag from Noodlehead. This has been the year of the bag for me. Last live, I showed you my Oxbow bag. And this time I made the Haralson bag, which is kind of like a cross-shoulder kind of purse, backpacky, small bag. And that one that I'm wearing, I made for Bella with some waxed canvas and then some blue cork that my friend Kate hooked me up with. And then the inside fabric I got when I was in Maine with Melinda at Clementine, and it has these really fun like moths and butterflies on it. So Bella got that bag, and it still had you can see kind of the red clips up at the top of my overalls. And that's because I was waiting to sew the strap until I made sure what size was the right length size for Bella to wear. And then I think we need to come back to me. And then, how am I doing on time? I'm fine. And then I made myself a bag. And so this is the second one I made, because that first one I wanted to learn how to do the pattern, and it was not hard. What I love about sewing bags that I never knew I was going to have about sewing bags is that it's almost like following Lego instructions. Like if you do exactly what the pattern says, like you cut things out and you label them just like it says, and then you do each step just like it says, all of a sudden you have a bag. Like all of a sudden you have a Lego flower bouquet, right? So I just treat it like really methodically, and then it's not scary, and I'm not like, no, I can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't have the skills. I just do it like one step at a time. And the biggest thing I've found is if I'm feeling tired or confused, I like get up and I go to the bathroom and I drink some water. I'm going to drink some tea right now. Noodlehead Anna has great videos to watch if there's something that's a little bit confusing. But this bag I want to tell you about in detail, because this bag, the fabric up here I wove when I was in college, and I'll show you under the camera. It's actually 2 different swatches that I wove. There was a period of time where I was going to be an interior fabric designer. Did you know that? I don't know if I've ever told anybody that. But anyway, I was going to design an interior fabric. So these were some swatches for like the book I was putting together that I would bring with me to New York City to like get a job with Jacqueline or Larson or somebody like that. And I had all these swatches that I saved, of course, because that's what my studio looks like. And then the main body fabric is actually this washable pleather that was my dining room chairs growing up. So like when I lived in Larchmont in 1987, this was our dining room chair fabric. And my mom keeps everything, so she had a roll of the fabric left over in case I like spilled my salad oil on my chair or something. And she gave me that roll, and then I was able to use it to make a bag. So it has like the best memories for fabric. But I want to show you. Okay, let's go overhead. So overhead, you can really see this fabric that I wove, and I wove it on a, how many, was it like a 30 harness AVL loom or 18 harness AVL loom that was at Syracuse University? I don't remember. Y'all, it was a lot of harnesses on that loom. And you can see there's two different fabrics, and to get a piece that was big enough for the front flap, I just kind of piece them together, which you could totally do with the Haralson to make that work. The most nerve-wracking part was cutting a hole in it. You can see I can still like trim up a little bit more to get this little brass latch in there to close it up. But this bag has like the best freaking details because it has a zipper on the inside for my very, very special stuff. So it's going to be a great travel bag. Like my passport will fit in there. And then it has a zipper on the back right there that fits your phone perfectly, like a nice big pocket. If I hold that up, that might be a little easier to see. Nice big pocket for your phone or your wallet that then are like straight up against your body. So I think if I'm going light, I'm going to be able to do like phone, wallet in the back pocket. I have a plan. I have a small wallet. And then like passport, lip stuff, unless those are in my pocket of my coat. And then I'm going to be able to fit like a pair of large peds in here to knit. And I am going to be psyched. So I got to come up with some yarn that matches this really well. Actually, the yarn that I'm knitting with, these guys go really well together. I feel like they should be in the photo shoot. Susan, I just looked at the chat, and Susan said that's a great use for all of the scraps of fabric that I've woven. Bags are an awesome place to use woven fabric because you can interface them really well. You can line them as necessary. This one I found this William Morris lining when I was at an estate sale, and it's just like perfect with all of the colors in there. Super fun. Bags. I'm addicted. A little bit. Like I only can sew in waves because I got enough going on like gardening, which has been my main obsession lately, but I did want to finish up that bag, so I did. So that's my sewing. I talked about travel, lots about knitting. I showed you some yarn, which was pretty lovely. And now I just want to talk to you about like what I've been listening and reading and watching. One thing that I am reading, we're going to have a little conversation about because I found something out like 10 minutes before I was coming on live that I think is very important to talk about. So we will chat about that. But first up, what I have been listening to is I started The Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which is like an 8-book series. And I think it's loosely based on Beauty and the Beast, but a little bit more modern, but also like who knows what time it's set in. There's fairies, there's fae, there's scary things. Not typically what I'm drawn to, but it is awesome. And it is so good for like the chore doing that I have right now, like gardening and dishes and like kind of life. I've been doing a bunch of spring cleaning and I'm loving it. And I love that I've got like a whole series to listen to. It's going to cover me for a while. One thing I don't love is when I finish a book and then I need to like find the next book that I'm going to be into. So I know some people, that is old news. They know about that series, but new to me. I'm psyched I tried it. The reason I tried it is because Spotify, we have Spotify Premium for the fam, and they started doing this like 15 hours free of audiobooks a month. And I definitely listen to more than 15 hours a month, but it lets me try something that I otherwise wouldn't necessarily try. Like I listened to a few things I didn't want to buy, but I did want to listen to. So this was one where I was like, it suggested it. I know Bella loves that series. Let me try it out. So thank you for that. In terms of reading, I've done a fair amount of reading in the last 2 months. Ladies Tan Circle of Women. It is by Lisa C. And I had read her book, I'm looking at my notes so I get it wrong, The Island of Sea Women, which I absolutely adored earlier this winter. So I decided I wanted to read more Lisa C. There's another one I really wanted to read called the Lady of Hummingbird Lane, I think, or like the Tea Lady of Hummingbird Lane. So that one I have queued up for the future, but I love her writing. I love reading about that part of the world. Everything's set in like China, and one thing was set in South Korea. So totally enjoying those. If you haven't read any Lisa C., I'm going to highly suggest her as adding. I haven't listened to those, but I think that they would be a great listen as well if you're more of a listener than a reader. And then finally, the thing I'm reading right now that my friend Sarah from Mexico suggested is Mademoiselle Chanel by C.W. Gortner. And I am halfway through the book. I have not made it to World War II yet. Someone wrote me an email earlier this evening that reminded me, because I remembered as soon as I read it, that Coco Chanel was a collaborator for the Nazis. I think that there are some conflicting stories as to whether she also did some work for the resistance and worked with the Nazis, but she did have a liaison with a Nazi official while the Nazis were in Paris. So I'm going to continue reading this book because I do find it very interesting. And I know that the author is going to be unpacking that whole segment of her life. But then I forget who wrote me the email. It might have been Jocelyn Grayson or somebody else, Judy Grayson. She said that there's a show on Apple Plus that came out this year called The New Look that is about Dior and Chanel and other fashion designers who are kind of working on that like modern post-World War II fashion. And she said that it also really unpacks that collaboration, that like Dior, I guess, did some collaborating, but his sister was in the resistance and he was funneling all the money that he was making to the resistance. And I think there's questions about maybe what Coco Chanel did. So I am really excited to be diving into that further and learning about it more. And thank you, Judy, for bringing that to my attention, because the moment you said that, I was like, I knew that and I forgot. And I just made it past World War I in the book, so I'm halfway through. And I'll report back, but I love to learn. And these are important things to keep remembering and keep learning about and not get complacent, basically. In terms of watching, I've watched so much in the last 2 months, but the movie that has stuck with me, and if you haven't watched it, I highly suggest it, is Origin by Ava DuVernay. And it's the story of Isabel Wilkerson, who was a New York Times editorialist and I think she was the first Black woman to win a Pulitzer Prize. And I thought I wasn't going to like it. I thought it was going to be like a little too pedantic and like lecture-y, but it had this really incredible storyline that really told the story of her life and also of her research. And I ended up watching it on a plane and was riveted for the whole flight. And I wished I'd watched it on a big screen, and I might watch it again at some point on a big screen, because you lose things on those tiny screens. But also I have less distraction because I'm not on my phone. I was just knitting and watching it. So if you haven't read that, and then I see somebody said Caste is in her reading list too, and Caste is the book that Isabel Wilkerson wrote. So, and I have not read that, but that is the link from the movie to the book. So finally, I want to end on a note about Knit for Food. So I'm just going to take a deep breath for a second. It's a lot of talking. Thank you so much. Knit for Food Knit-a-thon was on March 23rd, 2024. We knit for 12 hours and we raised $379,010 to fight hunger and food insecurity. We split that money between 4 organizations: Meals on Wheels, No Kid Hungry, World Central Kitchen, and Feeding America. And each of those 4 organizations got a check for $94,752. I've got a few stats for you. We had 601 teams that were fundraising. Some of those teams were individuals. Some of them were guilds and local yarn stores and church groups and groups in communities. So, I don't really know how many people were actually knitting for food. I just know that our teams were 601. You can see that the bulk of our donations were under $100, which is pretty freaking cool. Definitely under $500. I guess it's kind of split up in there. And we had 7,075 unique donations, which is pretty amazing. Oh, sorry, the bulk of our donations were under $50. I can't even read my own graphic. You can see down at the bottom of this graphic, though, that in your calendar right now, you can put April 5th, 2025 for next year's Knit for Food. That is Saturday, April 5th. We'll be knitting from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. And that's kind of like the page that if you went and looked for Knit for Food right now, that is what you would find is that final number and that the campaign has ended. And please put April 5th, 2025 into your calendar. Knit for Food, it's my favorite day of the year. The work that we do together as knitters to fight hunger and make a difference is huge and impactful. And every year I think we're only going to get bigger. We're only going to get stronger. Every year more people hear about it and want to become a part of it. And everyone is welcome. Sarah said it's her birthday. Yay. That's awesome, Sarah. We're going to knit for your birthday for 12 hours. What more could you want? 2 years ago, it was on my birthday, and that was a pretty awesome way to spend my birthday. The last thing that I want to say is World Central Kitchen, which is one of the 4 organizations that we're fundraising for, lost 7 heroes in Gaza a few weeks ago. And they are having a memorial tomorrow. The memorial is being held at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. It is at 11 a.m. and they will be live streaming the memorial on their website. So if you go to worldcentralkitchen.org, I think it's wck.org, you'll be able to have a link right on the front page if you want to watch that. I certainly have tomorrow blocked out to watch that at 11 a.m. It's an absolute travesty. I started talking to somebody about it the other day, and I was like, going off about rules of war and how it was against rules of war. And then she and I both kind of were like, what the crap? Like, why? War doesn't have rules. War it's against rules, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And here is where I lose my words when I talk about things that I care so deeply about and am so hurt for World Central Kitchen and following their healing journey and supporting them during it and the work that they do, that they're continuing to do around the world in the other places that they are while they heal from this unimaginable loss is incredible. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up tonight by telling you the winner of last week's live and then giving you a prompt for next live. And I don't know what the giveaway is. Do I get to say the giveaway is a surprise since I forgot to say what I wanted? It would be cool to be like, one of you is going to get yarned and knit Ola Lola. I could do that. Do you want to do that? Okay. Somebody is going to get some Cautiva to knit Ola Lola. Because Ola Lola will be out or almost out by the time we do the next live. And I do make the rules. Thank you, Melinda. I love that. Oh, if any of you have any questions, get them ready. I will be giving you links to everything below. So I kind of kept an eye. I didn't see any big questions come up while I was talking that out. So here's your prompt. It is an awesome prompt. The prompt, I know what it is. I've not talked to you at all about gardening, which I have been doing a bit. as the weather is allowing me, cleaning up my gardens. And one thing that I am doing in my garden is kind of getting rid of a few plants that have just taken over, and I don't it's not that I don't love them, they've just kind of like really taken up more space than they deserve in my garden. And so in clearing that space, I'm looking for a few bigger kind of like ornamental, bushy, showy plants that you love, that you think that I would love, to kind of take up a little bit more room. I'm trying to cut down on maintenance a little bit in some of my beds, and I can do that by putting in some like bigger showstoppery things. For example, I just bought myself an oak leaf hydrangea that is absolutely gorgeous and goes from like roses and tans, and it's so freaking pretty. I have my eye on a painted fern. I do have a few spots that are more shady than are sunny as you're thinking about it. Don't leave your idea in the live. You're going to have to leave that below, and don't leave a link, because if you leave a link, sometimes YouTube won't let it happen. So it could be your favorite flower, like your favorite flower in the garden, whether it's like a dahlia or a ranunculus, or it could be like a showy bush if you're a botanist and you have a good idea for me. But I'm just trying to, Andrea, I'm talking to you right now. Cautiva, it's waiting for you. Give me your ideas for my garden, because now is the time where I'm planning, and I'll be like planting within the month. So good time for that. The winner of the iCord tool from last time is Elisa7424, who came up with the name Ola Lola. So congratulations, Elisa. And then I am going to say goodnight to you all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was entertaining. I hope you learned something. I saw you all sharing with each other in the comments. So if you are watching this later, if you have those live comments going, you'll see that they were talking about other books. They were talking about other shows, which I really love. It becomes like a conversation for all of us to watch and enjoy together. So, happy knitting. I appreciate you. Good night.